Morning space chats now. That was my Bjork doing morning space chat.
Amazing. Oh my God.
Welcome to Morning Space Chats, the Space Cats Happy Hour morning show. I'm Sadie Cat Sun Portal, and with me is my delightful flower-crowned co-host.
Dreadpiratekk.
Yay!
How's it going?
It's snowing here. Yesterday it was uh really sunny, clear skies and very warm.
Mm.
And earlier this week we had a day that was like early September, late summer vibes. And then this morning we woke up and it was full snowing.
Wow. It's interesting the mirror of the weather that we usually have because we had the same, but and we were supposed to get snow, like the warm weather and the September stuff, and we were supposed to get snow today, but it ended up being rain instead, which I am totally fine with. But yeah, it's rainy and pretty chilly. And really nice vibes, but I also like vibes to spend the day in bed.
Yes.
Probably what I'm going
Yeah,
to be doing after this.
I know. It's very cozy, rosy vibes. My
Mhm.
partner Mike went out to do groceries and he's very disgruntled about it. It does feel like the day where we could have just stayed in bed and done nothing. By the way, it's November 9th that we are recording this. And you can always watch the video versions of the podcast on YouTube or Spotify, or listen to us wherever you find your podcast. I want to do something later today that has to do, I want to kind of do a live like channeling to get information about something
Okay.
that has to do with the group 7 TikTok trend, which I'll get into later.
Okay.
But do you have any news or updates to share since our last recording?
Well, I moved a first round of stuff into the pirate ship.
Right.
So that was Friday, 2 days ago. And it was, I mean, it went smoothly compared to other moves. It was more like my mom wanted to move some stuff from the barn and like the bookcases from here and all that stuff. And that was a longer story because I didn't realize I was going to be in charge of doing that. So I was a little bit, all my buttons were pushed the day
Mm.
before this week when I was like, oh my God. But anyway, so she was like, since I'm moving stuff, let's just put, the things you're not using on there, like big, like my couch and stuff. I just never sit in the living room. So like, I'm just like, well, I don't really need any of that stuff. And I usually sit on the sun porch. So
Right.
anyway, it went smoothly, except also my driveway needed gravel and it was supposed to be done before we got there. And I pull in the drive, and there's a ginormous pile of gravel, and it hasn't been spread, and we can't get around it.
Oh my God.
We were this close to the house. I was like, I give up. I give up. So anyway, apparently there was some truck about, I don't know, whatever. The farmer came to like do the thing real quick. The movers went to do another job. They were moving some guy's couch or something, so it was quick. Anyway,
Oh.
it was like weirdly smooth, but like also some, that kind of stuff. So anyway, that happened. And then the next day, Saturday morning, I got my replacement freezer, which I don't know if
That's
I
awesome.
did I share. I don't think I shared this on the pod, but anyway, earlier in the summer, I lost a whole freezer full of food. Oh man, that was the freezer just broke, and it happens, and that's why you check your freezers every so often to make sure. And I just didn't. I've never had a freezer before, so I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, so I've just never. Anyway, got the new freezer, and it only fits in the living room. It would not go through any other door, and I was like, amazing. But again, it was like really cool timing because it was like just as I was leaving my house to go to the thing, because it was a big window, a big delivery window. They ended up narrowing it down from like 11 to 3 or whatever. And just as I was leaving my house, I was like prepared to spend like 5, 6 hours, like whatever it took. And they're probably going to get there later, but whatever. I'm just going to get there. My mom called me as I was leaving. She was like, they're about 20 minutes away. And I was like, oh my God. Like literal perfect timing.
Sweet.
So it was like again a mixture of like super smooth and also, oh my God, the fucking freezer is in my living room. Which
Wow.
is fine. It's fine. At
That's
least I have
interesting.
one. So
Yeah, yeah.
anyway,
Congrats on both things.
thank you.
Huzzah.
Moving forward.
Yeah, in a big way.
Hmm.
Um, what I'm just trying to think if there's anything on my end. Oh, it's my mind's a blank. As you were telling that story, I know I have a similar story of like something that was like both chaotic and smooth, but I can't remember it right now.
If it comes to you.
Yeah, but something interesting that I learned, and I will try to find the link to the TikTok where the person describes it at length. Um, but it was about how the okay, so the reason mammals can get pregnant is due to a virus. So way back in the day,
Wow.
one of the earliest mammal species, there was a parasite that was trying to make a home in the mammal's body, and this through this virus, and everything that the virus did for itself to survive and the way that it ended up like recoding the body is what allowed pregnancy to be possible. So it um, created like the genetic material that became the placenta.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's what evolved from this virus was the genetic material that created placenta, and the mechanisms that viruses use to survive is what allows a mammal body to have a pregnancy, because the pregnancy is considered an invasion. So it allows it to tolerate the invasion of another being in the body by hiding it from the immune system
Damn.
and other technical things that I can't remember right now. But that's, yeah. And so it's due to that virus that we are able to carry
Wow.
children, our babies, to term. Um, and I'm not the only one, obviously, but I've just since, I don't know if we talked about this back in the day because we started our podcast so much, like it was already, COVID was, had already been around for a while. But I remember when COVID hit and it was the coronavirus, I was like, oh, this is a big crown activation for everybody. But also, I remember learning stuff about viruses at that time and how they can create steps in like create big jumps, leaps in evolution. And I was like, okay, this is COVID's gonna help us along with like the physical evolutionary process. And I was reading something recently about how, I think it was another one of my National Geographic email updates that I get, about how, maybe I already said this, that um, the COVID people who've had the COVID vaccine are surviving cancer better. And it's like,
Oh.
Yeah, it's like having big impacts on like the rate of survival or like the prognosis after cancer diagnosis, like positive prognosis after cancer diagnosis. And
Wow.
yes.
Incredible.
Yeah. So it's already
Yeah.
doing stuff
Mm-hmm.
um, related to, for me, it's the 6D body that's coming in that I started heavily experiencing during the Lionsgate portal between July and August and beyond, when I had that when I tripped and like had to get stitches, and then had this thing in my chin that I don't even know what it was, but it was like so gnarly, and it felt like bone or gristle or collagen or scar tissue, and it was like this big chunk of something under my chin that was just like wasn't going away, and was like creating this shape that I did not want in my profile. And it just went like, I just kept pushing it and then leaving it alone and like remolding it like chewing gum, and then it would go away and then it would come back and go, and then eventually it just like disappeared. Anyway,
Wow.
so much 60s stuff, including this thing where I could suddenly hold my breath for like ever. I was doing this other type of micro breathing or something was happening, but I could just hold my breath and it just didn't feel like I was holding my breath. And I just tried it again. Well, I wasn't trying to try that, but Mike and I had like a hold your breath off competition. And it was totally different. It was like the old way. So it really made me know, because at the time I was like, is this just something like that I just never noticed, that like I'm secretly breathing when I think I'm not breathing or whatever. And then this was like, and I think it's because Mike was there, so it wasn't like showing up, you know.
Yeah.
But it was totally different. I was like holding my breath, and I immediately like felt the things that you feel when you're holding your breath. And for weeks and weeks I could just hold my breath, and it was just like nothing was happening. I never built up that pressure. And it was really spooking me out, actually. But I want to get it back now. Anyway,
Yeah.
lots of 60 body shit. And yeah, so I think it's interesting that these news stories are showing up now about stuff relating to
Viruses.
virus, and how it can help us evolve.
Yeah. I feel like that triggers something else I was learning about viruses, but this was a while ago, and now I don't know that I can. Something about a virus in ice or something. Was that in Antarctica? Maybe not. I might have just been confusing a bunch of different stories. In fact, we should probably cut that.
Okay.
Never mind. Was it though? Oh well.
Is it coming? No, not coming.
No.
If it comes in anyway.
Okay.
Yes. So another interesting thing I just want to throw out there. I think I talked about it a little bit on another podcast, but it's just getting, or maybe I didn't. I've been really getting this feeling. I've been getting for a while now, like deflation, economically, like of prices of things. And I've been seeing it in deals that have been showing up, but like deals that are like permanently available on things that are staples in our household, that are just saving like huge amounts on what they would cost and stuff. So I have been seeing it at that micro level, but the thing that came in was, the message that came in was around 2002, and it's like going back to 2002 and what things cost around that time. And I think it's you and I talked about it after the podcast. And for me, I was living in Montreal at that time and had a large 2-bedroom, sunny, really nice apartment in a very small apartment building. We were on the top floor, had a nice back balcony, access to a backyard. It was lovely. And my share of the rent and utilities was something like $212 a month or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that sounds awesome. I'll take that.
yeah. So just, I don't know, like keeping an eye out for, but specifically, I don't know why 2002. Maybe it's something to do with like the power of two. It is, or like the power that that year held or something, because the numbers feel significant.
Yeah.
But yeah, so keeping an eye out for just like feeling back to what everyone was paying for stuff around that time, and that being like normal. Now, is it possible that this would come about through some turbulent ways that might feel uncomfortable? Maybe.
Hmm.
But you know, the upshot is, hey,
Well, yeah,
I'll
lower
take
prices.
$200 a month rent. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It is an interesting, I mean, abundance has been showing up. I mean, interestingly for you, because you had such a strong signature of like exchange and barter energy, that abundance and like things that were not linked to money for a while, that abundance would show up for you in all these other ways, including like land and and stuff like that. But like now it's showing up for you financially in these gifts that you've been getting of actual money, which is great. But it's really interesting to think of abundance coming in not through getting more money, but needing much less money because everything costs way less, like that. That version of abundance as well.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So 2002. What were you
I
doing in
was,
2002?
yeah, I was just trying to, I'm sure I was living in Nashville because I was in college. Oh, I was living in an apartment with my sister in a really cool like neighborhood. It was like the strip. There's like a road in Nashville called Hillsborough Village or something like that. I can't remember what the words. Anyway, it was like where everybody went out. It was like the cool grocery stores, the cool cafes, bars, whatever. And it was just past that, so you didn't get the noise from the
Yeah.
village, but like you could walk there. And um, I didn't love the apartment or anything, but like it was, obviously, I can't remember how much it was per month, but it was definitely way less than it would be now. I'm sure it's crazy, but I don't know. I don't really remember.
Well, you're in Nashville, so music, so that Andromeda stuff, like,
Oh, good point. And it's funny. I'm wearing this is the flower crown from Mothership, so I'm
right.
very Andromedan energy. Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um, that's it sounds fun. I had just moved to Montreal from Lennoxville, which is a small town in the Eastern Townships where I'd grown up. So it was huge for me. It was this like massive life change. Um, and originally I was supposed to move in with one of my best friends, Alexandra, but we went to California, Northern California that summer to stay with a friend of hers who was quite a bit older than us. I would have been like 20 around that time. And we stayed with her friend Phoebe so that we could all drive to um, Burning Man together. But we stayed for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks total in like at Burning Man, but also in Northern California. And then Alexandra decided to stay. So Alexandra and I had been planning on moving to Montreal together, moving in together. And then instead of that, suddenly she decided to stay. And I ended up finding an apartment. It was crazy. There were no apartments in that time in Montreal. There was such an apartment shortage that you would show up and there would be lineups of like 50 people for an apartment. Like
Whoa.
it was like a real threshold guardian thing.
Yeah.
And like we were both from out of town. We both looked like huge hippies. I don't know if either of us had jobs lined. Like it was all like, and the way we ended up getting our apartment was the guy that I moved in with, my friend Mathieu, his sister lived in this building, and it was the apartment next to her, and somebody moved out, and she put in the good word. She was able to put in the good word with us. It was like one of those just
Yeah.
magical. I was like, no, you're in and stuff. But it was this huge shift for me living in Montreal and being in a big city, and like I didn't have anything lined up, so it was a very transitional phase. 2002, where I was just kind of, I mean, I'd gone to Burning Man, which was like a wild life experience for me. And first time living with a roommate that wasn't like a boyfriend. And just being alone a lot, because he worked out of town. He had to come and go for work, so he was gone for long stretches of period and stuff. Anyway, it was a very like weird liminal transitional phase and stuff for me that time, but it had a lot of like newness to it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it's interesting to think back on whatever you were doing back into, and like what the vibe was.
Mm-hmm.
The vibe was like, whoa, a whole new world, you know, and like, what am I doing in it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And even that, making that rent, and like, I, I was eating, I would eat, liver pate to make sure I got like iron.
Oh my gosh.
but like I was just eating like very, like I would do the tiniest groceries and stuff, and like
Yeah.
really making things sure. But I remember like liver pate was on the list just to make sure I got like enough.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a trippy time.
Sounds really good though. I want some liver pate.
2002. Did you know that dragon fruit, that little dragon sink, contains so much iron?
What?
Yeah,
No.
I've had to be really creative on how I get my iron with how what I'm able to like eat and digest and stuff. And I know my iron levels have to be higher. Um, and so I was looking things up, and I was like, oh, I was like, well, I definitely have to be eating
You gotta.
dragon fruit, and also blackstrap molasses, but I think that one's more commonly known.
I love. I don't know that I knew it had iron in it though. I don't. I feel like I learned so much about foods and all kinds of stuff. I'm like, how did I not know that? I
If
love
you're
molasses.
eating liver and stuff like that, you're fine. You're already good. But if like I can't eat liver right now, so yeah, I had to like find a tofu. Actually contains quite a bit of iron too.
Oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
learning so
And
much.
soybeans.
Hmm.
Um.
Cool.
Okay. I guess we should just maybe.
Want to do some channeling?
Yeah. So okay. So the group 7 thing, it came to me in two ways. One, suddenly there was this big, every time I opened TikTok, it was like a few days that was like the peak, and then it kind of slowed down. But it was like this huge peak where everyone was like, group 7, you're in group 7. If you're seeing this, you're in group 7. And it all started with this one woman's post of, if you're seeing this, you're in group 7, describing. I intentionally tuned it out because I don't like to get input externally about things like that. But I don't even know if it was like serious. I think she was serious about the groups. Um, but it like people took it and ran with it in this interesting, like both serious and jokey way. And it felt like one of those like spiritual TikTok messages of like,
Right.
and it was like group 7 people are like this and like that, and then this is your like path or whatever, I think. But people just were like really into it, and like making all sorts of videos about it and kidding around with it and joking around with it, and like, but the thing was like it just got so much attention, so I was getting that way, and I was like, okay. And at first I was like, oh, that just seems like another, there's these like spiritual things that come and go that don't necessarily feel like they're like my frequency or meant for me or whatever. But then simultaneously my mom was like, oh, you should read this mystery novel. And it was all about the group of 7 painters in Canada who also, my great uncle was one of them. He wasn't one of the original group of 7, but he was one of the, they later added in a few more members, and he was one of those, Edwin Holgate. So they're like this huge paint like thing in Canada. And the fact that my uncle, like everything in that happens in my reality is always connected. It's always the metaphor or the symbol or something that connects to my soul. Like it's all connected. So I was like, okay, this is a lot of like groups and stuff coming at me. And also like I'm related to group 7 in a kind of sort of not way, which is also very like how things are for me often. I'm straddling. So I was like, all right, I guess group 7 isn't just like I'm not supposed to be tuning it out. Yeah. So I guess I just wanted to like vibe into it.
It's so fun. It's like the 7 has followed me around for a while. Like when I first started tracking numerology in like 2021, I was in a 7 year. So that was like a major thing. And my home address of my childhood home reduced to a 7, which I found out. And then just last night, I was watching a video. I follow a certain astrology. I don't watch a whole lot of stuff anymore, but I do watch some astrology. And it was a guy talking, like it was an interview. The astrologer I normally watch was interviewing somebody who was talking about Rudolf Steiner. And I know Rudolf Steiner's name, but like I've never read anything. I just know he's a mystic and everybody follows him and whatever. But he apparently, what?
He also developed a different type of form of education.
Oh,
It's called like the Waldorf method, and there are Waldorf schools for kids that are like very like,
oh,
I think he was trying, doing new earth stuff, like
okay.
very creativity focused, very like child centered, as opposed to like you learn what we say you're gonna learn. Like
I've heard of Waldorf schools, but I didn't know what that really was. And I certainly didn't know it was him. Okay, so that's very interesting, actually. But anyway, he had this one of the points that the guy was making talking about him was he viewed life in series of 7 year cycles. And so the astrologer was talking about how 7, a Saturn chunk of time, like a Saturn square or opposition or whatever, those are 7 year chunks. And also Neptune, I think, or no, Uranus spends 7 years in each sign. So they were, anyway, the number 7 has been like, oh shit, in my face for a little bit here. So this is gonna be fun. I
interesting.
can't wait to hear more about it. Channel
Yeah. Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. So just gonna please join me to like
Okay.
let's do it together. And I,
Okay.
I feel like we have either a very similar or some overlap in our relationship to group 7.
Cool.
Um, well, the first thing that actually was drawing my attention was my dragon cards, which are on my desk. So,
Hmm.
oops. When I was thinking about group 7, when I was thinking about what it could mean originally, I was like, does this have to do, like, I always want to call her Dolores Claiborne, the spiritualist, Dolores,
Cannon.
whatever, Cannon. um, like she talked about like the 3
Three waves.
waves,
Mhm.
the 3 labias, the 3 labes.
Amazing.
um, and I was like, is that something like that.
Oh. Hmm.
Just going to free associate a bit, like, because the thing that I really liked about the group 7 stuff on TikTok was, I say, it was very playful, and people were like simultaneously like taking it seriously and also not. Like, it didn't matter. Like, it was like a joke and not a joke. But it was very now focused. And for me personally, it feels like a weird time to be like, you're group 7 now. It's like, well, I've been tweaking out here for quite, like, why am I suddenly part of a group now? Like, that for me feels like a new, like, okay,
Mm.
there's a new wave of people who are coming online in their group 7, but
Mm. Yeah. Interesting. Mm.
I don't, do you know what the waves are? Like, did, when she described them, like what time they corresponded to?
Yeah, that's hilarious because I literally just read that book a couple of weeks ago.
Oh,
And
great.
I've never,
Okay.
but I didn't, I mean, it was hard for me to, it was kind of hard. uh, Anyway, but I do, so in general, the first wave started coming in after World War II. So like 1945, 47-ish, I think, or maybe it was, yeah, anyway, 45, 47 to like early, like maybe 1960 or something like that. And then like the second wave was 65, the overlap and gaps. And so in
Okay.
general, like late 40s to early 60s, and then early 60s to like 1980-ish, and then 80 to, I don't know, 2000 or something like that. But the um because the book was published in, I think, 2011, I want to say. So all these things that she was studying and hypnosis and all that stuff, they were kind of in the early 2000s. And so each group had a certain, like the first wave was just to like poke holes in the frequency fence kind of thing, and not really do anything else. Like they just needed to live and exist, and their mission or whatever was just to poke holes and hold light and allow more souls to come in to have the light spread further and further. And then the second wave was more like, um which I was kind of identifying with. It was also kind of like a coming in and being, just being like, but those of us who were here for that, we were like, but there is a measure, like we kept feeling there was something more to do, or like, what are we? And so the answers kept coming in for those people. It was like, no, you literally just have to be. But now that it has kind of, like, time has passed, some of those original imprints or like coded missions or whatever, it's like you can now kind of, like, yeah, the first part of my life, for example, was like just being, and now I do have a mission. Like the third wave was really supposed to have, like, third wave coming in to like build new schools or build, but that kind of stuff. So it's like you can, even if you were a part of the first wave, now you can also have a mission if that's like kind of an updated soul contract or that kind of thing. So the second and third waves, there's just a lot of, the energy is more, the soul contracts have been updated is kind of what it sounds like a little bit. So that's kind of a general
So
thing.
again, okay, that's really helpful and interesting. Thank you. So when I heard, there was a period where I was hearing a lot about Dolores Cannon, and like people were like doing deep dives, and I was like, no, I can't go there. I think it's going to send me, like, I think what she's going to say is going to be different than what's true for me. And I have always felt, I'm like, no, that wasn't the first wave, didn't start, because that's the thing when it says it started like 40, I'm like, no, 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 this was happening before.
I think so too.
If you go back um to like turn of the century, there were so many, like if you look at the roots of the anarchist movement, um there's like very spiritual people in it who were like getting the downloads that we're still
Yeah.
getting to, and like putting them out. And that's also like that first part of the 20th century. That's also like when the group of seven were more like, it was like, I think it was all very early 1900s, maybe some late 1800s. I'm not sure, but definitely like my uncle Edwin fought in the First World. My great uncle Edwin fought in the First World War, and he also worked closely with a group of women artists in Montreal called the Beaver Hall Group, and I feel like stuff that was going on in the art world as well, like Hilma Aft Klint,
Oh yeah.
that she was very, very spiritual, and her paintings were like way ahead of her time, but she's like much earlier than um the 40s as well and stuff. So I feel like for me, this group seven stuff feels like we've had an acceleration.
I think, yeah, I missed kind of one of the key parts of it though. It was kind of like whatever we were doing with the atomic bomb in World War II, that's what triggered these three waves of volunteers, because of like that was when we worked with the atomic energy, we were causing ripples throughout that were affecting the entire, like all of our soul family, all in different dimensions, like all the so it was kind of like, okay, we need to call in some big like emergence, like the earth was calling out for like, okay, I need some help done, at least according to Dolores. So
Well, yeah, but what I feel is that some of them were sent back earlier,
okay, gotcha.
and so I think that things, I do feel like people who we refer to as the boomers, like this huge wave of that energy coming in, and then another one. But I feel like since the 2000, like the 2010s, things have just like hyper accelerated to have like, so if I would say where we were at like more like four waves for me is how it feels, more like four or maybe five waves had happened by 2011. I guess that's not such a hyper. Well, it is still pretty fast within like another
Yeah.
15 years to have like another two come in. But
Mhm.
it could be like two or three that have come in the past like 15 years. And this is like, um, which is interesting because he was like a late addition to the group.
Mm.
It's funny because like I can sense, like I feel like I'm usually when I open myself up to information, it just comes in really like
Yeah.
effortlessly. And I feel like there's some like
Mm.
fogginess or like stuff that's like not being fully
Okay.
revealed, but it does feel like a wave thing.
Mhm.
Um and the dragons. When I thought of the dragons, I thought of the dinosaurs, which I feel very connected to.
Yeah, me too.
There's something about him being a late addition,
Mhm.
but he was also early.
Is it more that bridge energy?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Um yeah, because I think what's like I'm trying to get information on two things. One, what is the group? And two, what's my relation to it, which are slightly different, right? So just the group itself. Yeah, that just feels connected to like the wave of major coming online that's happening and gonna continue to happen. I mean, people are going so far into their dark nights of the soul.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, it does also take 7 years for all your cells to.
right. Right. There's something about group 7 being related to like completion of cycles.
Yeah, and like new body stuff. If like all of your cells have turned over, you're like, I guess, a new person or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, and like what you were saying about like Uranus or Saturn, like staying in it for so then once it's done, it's like you've completed. I don't know. I'm not getting a lot from the dragon specifically, but it feels like it's very connected to dragon energy.
Cool.
Maybe it's just that, I mean, people have been coming online in waves. Like we talked about the face thing, where suddenly everybody, which would have been circa 2011, when I moved to Toronto, and I suddenly noticed everybody had cherub face. like, I guess there was a lot of all sorts of different energy signatures coming in through people, and maybe this one is very dragon heavy. Um, which is interesting because what I was learning about dragons is they're very much associated with like order and structure. Like in the duality binary of like order versus chaos, they're more team order, which is kind of interesting. And I don't think that's like needs to put dragons in a box or something, but it does feel interesting that a lot of like, because I feel like a lot of people, there was a big segment of the whatever group 5 or 6 or whatever that came in circa like 2019 2020 that had a lot of chaotic energy in them, like they were embodying chaotic or like fallen angel, dark angel, get in touch with your dark side kind of stuff, like embodying like intentionally consciously embodying like the succubus or the dark seductress or the whatever. Like I feel like people were really holding those energy signals. There was a lot, I mean, there was a lot of witch, warlock, fae, trickster, um a lot of stuff that was like, okay, we're going to get more comfortable so we can collapse that binary more and that good versus evil stuff. And because that's like such a pillar that holds up the matrix, the old good versus evil binary. People like either holding very chaotic energy or like very dark, quote, like something that would have been perceived as evil, but now we're reclaiming it.
Yeah.
So that, whereas maybe this, and also probably there was probably a lot of like, yeah, there were definitely a lot of angelic stuff as well coming in, because I mean I saw it in people I did sessions on, and like the cherubs were everywhere and stuff too. But this dragon energy feels more ordered and structured to me in terms of like building, like less of the tear down, more of the building part, and more boundaries of like, all right, we're putting the brakes, we're putting boundaries on what we're willing to tolerate as a species, kind of thing, energy coming in to be able to be like, hey, yo, all right, we got the point. And yeah, that's what it's kind of feeling like.
That resonates. Oh, and it's 12/12.
Well, you've definitely, for me, always felt like you held, not, I'm not reducing you this or that you were only this, but you definitely for me always felt like you held a lot of that reclaiming inner darkness
Yeah.
energy signature. Um, and it's definitely like a huge part of like my whole cosmic neutrality or compassionate neutrality um thing was about like reclaiming all parts of the selves, including the dark parts, but also including the dense parts, but also including, it's so hard with light and dark because there's so much weird baggage around those um, terms that I prefer to use light and dense, just like
Yeah.
anyway. But the also reclaiming the light as in light and dense versus dense like aspects of the self too that are like often I find the shadow behind the shadow, like when we're digging into our shadow, I'm doing our shadow work and we find something really heavy and dense and a fear or something that some huge guilt or shame or fear that we have to sit with it, or like powerlessness, like the shadow behind that is actually uh an incredible connection to our power and our fearlessness and our joy and our um I'm really free associating here. I don't know if this is going to hold together or be coherent for anybody, but for me that's how I felt like I was, whatever that 5 or 6 wave, that's how I felt like I was, my way through it was that. But I definitely feel like I have a lot of that dragon energy that's like the boundary.
Mhm.
And it's really important for me to be able to feel it internally so that I can, for myself personally, so that I can like also share it externally.
Yeah. That's so interesting because I have been working with my emotional wave and finding the gifts in the emotional lows for over a year at this point. And my dark feminine dragon is the one who showed up when I started doing that. And I feel she's related to the seven energy, but she feels more not she's not she is chaos, but like it's interesting when you were talking about order and stuff, the number within seven, it was like I somehow like free association. I was like, oh, seven has to do a lot with chaos. Again, my perspective or whatever, because seven is a very internal number where it's the number of the seeker. You're like going inside and like finding answers and like, yeah, you're trying to like ask questions of the outside world or whatever. But for me, it was very much like I'm searching all kinds of stuff in here. Um and then so it felt like I was going into the chaos to find answers and then bring them up for myself into the and so yeah, it's interesting, like the dragon, like you're like the order and then like the chaos, but it's, I don't know, again, she's not just chaos, but like that's, there's something about the chaos and order within the chaos or something. I can't quite, I'll chew on that for a little bit and see. But I do have a sidebar about a really cool book series called The Invisible Library. I started reading it when I was working at the library, and it's about this invisible library. It's basically the Akashic Records. It's like this neutral place, and um, the character, the main heroine goes out, like all the librarians go out to these different worlds to find that like books specific to that world that only exist in that world to and then bring it back to the library to like have a tie to that world, so kind of keep that neutrality going because the dragons represent order and the fae represent chaos, and so there's all these different worlds, and then like as you get closer to the library it's a little bit more neutral. And anyway, it's a really cool series. I just wanted to throw that out there for anybody who wants to have a cool fun fantasy type
That
read.
might be where some of the dragons representing order came to for me, because I don't, there was so many, I read, there was suddenly a bunch of books that were about like libraries and in like magical mystical ways, so I can't quite remember, but it's really
Yeah.
um familiar that the Fae, and you have a lot of Fae energy.
So fun.
Um,
I've been trying to. It's funny because like I have always felt like I've always read fairy tales and I've always loved the thing, but I've also been very wary of Fae energy. I'm like, I don't know about that. And clearly, when you have a blockage around something, that's, so I haven't quite gotten all into my Fae stuff yet. But it's so funny when you remind me of that because I'm like, oh yeah, I do. But it's like I don't know how to get into that. Maybe start to do my 7 thing and go into chaos and find some answers.
yeah. Yeah, it feels like your frequency of 7 and mine are different again. Um, which is interesting. I think that's usually how it goes with us. We're usually speaking at different frequencies of things. Um, that's very interesting. I don't know if I have like, I just at this point I so associate the number 7 with 7D and the Earth cycle and like incorporating all the like Lemuria Earth, like that energy, which I'm making face because it's like that's the stuff that's been like the densest for me to move through and
Yeah.
like experience and physically and emotionally and stuff. And it's just been a lot. That Earth
Same.
energy integrating it and stuff. But this feels like, I don't know, it's like a different 7.
I really feel like new stuff is happening right now. Like all the old, I mean, it's a gradual transformation, but like it feels like it's really speeding up and new stuff that like, it's like we experienced this frequency of these archetypes and now we're moving into a different frequency of the archetypes and both are true. It's just, this is a new version of that.
Yeah. Um, it makes sense to me that the it really for me it's important. I would say this is important. Everyone, but I actually feel strongly about this. um, I feel that it's important that each wave of awakening have a different experience than like that's like a really important part of the process because it's not about solidifying and calcifying into like what is an awakening and what is the. So it makes sense to me that this group 7 would come in with much stronger boundaries about what their experience would be,
Yeah.
um, which is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel that part of my experience has been to go through my experience and be like, yeah, that was fine, but it doesn't have to be that dense.
Mm-hmm.
There's no inherent value to it being that dense for every. I mean, it doesn't make sense for every wave to just have this like that's not evolving, that's not changing, that's just looping, right? So um that feels very connected to my purpose of like being able to like really firmly take a stand and being and like that it's fully okay. I'm still I'm almost there. I'm almost there with the fully okay with the past year specifically because everything else before that I do feel completely at peace with, even the loss of that friendship, which was very hard. The past year where I went back into a personal experience that felt like pure hell, like I'm not still, I know I'll get there and it'll be nice to be fully at peace with it. But I'm like, I mean, probably part of it, that's part of coming out of it is being like, that was stupid. That was shit. Nobody needs to go through that shit. That was fucking bullshit. it's not necessary, you know? I think that's like, yeah, for me to be able to hold those two truths, that it's like, I did it. I'm going to find value in it. I'm going to take all the value from it that I can, and I'll gain everything that I can from that stupid fucking experience. And I'm also going to say that it was stupid and pointless and awful. um, yeah. So, yeah. And I think part of like that fact that they were like being so playful and not taking it so seriously is part of it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, God knows the messages that were coming in were trying to remind us always to not take things so seriously,
Yeah.
but hopefully the codes are just already going to be there in the people that go through it now, for them to be able to take it. And it's okay if you take it seriously. It's all right. It's perfectly okay. If you still are taking things very seriously, that's just fine. Do it that way. But yeah. Okay, that's given me more clarity.
It was fun to chew on it though. I like.
Yeah. And also like what you said about shifting out, things related to shifting out, like I do feel like it's very important for me to have a clear cut, like, okay, this was one part of my spiritual experience, and now we moving on to a different part.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I ain't going
Mm-mm.
back.
Ain't go. Oh man, don't look back.
I will say, yeah, there's two things that connect to that I'll just talk about quickly. One of them is when I was talking about dense light and dense versus light and dark and stuff. It's also light and dense. I was just thinking about just how tricky language is in terms of how it can, the same word can be really empowering and, what's the word, expansive, like help you expand in one context of your, or one time in your life, in one context of your life, and then later become more restrictive. So sometimes this is specifically talking about higher self. So specifically for me, that term, there was a period for me where it was, where the hierarchy that I associated with a higher self was helpful for me, because I felt like I needed to imagine a version of myself that was more powerful and more like, that was on a higher level than me, that could help me through what felt like just muddling in total darkness. And like that felt very like soothing to be able to go and talk to that version and um whatever. But then it simultaneously and also gradually, I was also like felt this resistance to
Yeah.
that hierarchical perception. But I was just thinking of it in the context of the rapture too. Like the higher self, when we're talking about it, I was just literally thinking about it as like something with less density that just naturally rises. And what happens when you rise and rise, you just get the more zoomed out view, and you get the bird's eye view, which allows you to see things from a big picture, more neutral, distant. You've got distance from it, and it has nothing to do with being a better version of yourself, or something that's like on a pedestal in any way. It's just literally, it's like you just drifted up, like you've got helium in you that allows you to get this zoomed out perspective. um, which is what I think the rapture is. You know,
Oh,
it's like people going up, being zoinked up into the whatever. It's just like internally getting that, being able to go up and get that bird's eye view perspective that's just shifts how you feel and see and understand and behave and act and know everything, right? But it's not, it's just sheerly um like it's an earth thing because we have density and gravity and stuff on earth. It's specifically on earth. You just shed that density and you go up, you get the bird's eye view. Because if you're in outer space, there's no up or down, there's no higher or lower. That doesn't apply. Like you're just floating, there's no orientations. um I don't think I'm explaining this super clearly, but that was the thing that was coming in for me around the higher self. Like literally just because on earth we have this experience of like density and gravity and stuff, that's what the higher self is referring to when you're, which is just, you know, you ultimately.
yeah. That's, I love how you described that. Like because I too needed that higher power to be like, well, show me what the fuck to do, kind of thing. And now I'm like, oh, right. It is me. It's not really, I feel more powerful just to kind of take control of my, and it's not control, but like knowing I control my own reality and that kind of thing where I'm like, and I still sometimes do the thing where I'm like, and this is kind of how I live my life now, where I'm just like, well, you show me what to do then, and I'll deal with it. Because I know that I'm the one in the escape room. Like I know that I'm uncovering the mysteries and solving the puzzles and doing this and doing that. And I like that finally, and it's fun. It wasn't always fun for me, but now I have a good relationship with it. But now I can see that it's like that version of me is just outside of time and space and like has all the memories and all the, it is. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, you then, and I've boiled it down to being like loudly and clearly, just show me, like I don't have time for bullshit. And then until I get something in my path that I deal with, I just fucking relax. I'm like, or as best I can. I'm like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna read a book then. I'm gonna,
Yeah.
for a walk in the
That's,
woods or rest for a day or 3 days or whatever the hell. So
it's such a great attitude. Yeah. And so whereas like I think it's so much to ask of somebody who has gone their whole life believing themselves to be a single being within this huge universe instead of like also the huge universe to like go from 0 to 100. And
yeah.
so I do think it's like um totally completely normal and fine, and it would be normal and fine anyway. I don't need to approve of it, but like to rely on that, to be like, okay, I'm putting this person, like they're like some future me or whatever that I can call my higher self, and then gradually it just for me means like take me to that like bird's eye perspective, take me to the my bird's eye perspective that I have.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, I guess maybe I'll just leave it at that one then for this episode.
Be an exploratory topic for other, or like a, well, not a, I mean it is exploratory, but what's the, like a series, like a mini series, we'll come
Yeah,
back
yeah,
to this.
yeah. um
That's
yeah,
cool.
because that feels like a good one for today.
Cool, I like it.
All
Sounds.
right, space kitties, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.